Okay, so I will put in a little red rectangle what we need to write. Okay, so the first thing we need to write is odontology. It's the scientific study of teeth structure and diseases. So somebody else who might use this would be a dentist or some sort of surgical doctor that would help somebody with their teeth. So this person would need to be highly experienced, specially trained dentist. So that is 4 to 8 years of higher education, plus a medical degree in dentistry, and that's going to increase their job performance and their salary. Salaries can run here in Kentucky anywhere from $150,000 to $185,000 annually. This is used to identify unknown remains, specifically age, using dental evidence and records. So that is something important that we need to make note of in forensics. I will also make note of the fact that I'm going to check your notes in your binder on your next binder check. So this is part of that. So there was this episode of Bones, and it's actually a real thing. I've looked it up. That they use the person's teeth, a living victim. They couldn't figure out where this victim was from. And they can look at the isotopes in your teeth to tell what region of the world you grew up in, even as specific as to what region of the United States. So not only can you identify victims based on their teeth impressions, but also what their teeth are composed of. Emily, if you need to move up, there's a seat up here. I think. Yeah, this coat is back there. And there's another seat over here by Nick if somebody needs to move up. He only bites a little. What? You bite a lot? Okay. Forensic odontology on the job. So what they are going to do specifically is examine a piece of dental evidence. Are they going to do this in the field? What do you think? Maybe, if it's like immediate importance that they need to look at it. Like for some reason there's something that's going to be damaged if they remove this body. But most of the time, if they're able, they're going to take it back to a lab and examine that piece of dental evidence. They're going to look for very unique features, maybe a chipped tooth, a missing tooth, something that is specific to this person. They are going to match with pre-existing dental records of similar or same characteristics to make identification possible. So each and every time you get a filling in your mouth, in your teeth, that's going to make your teeth more unique because you have it in a very specific place. Okay. There we go. All right, there are two main purposes. You can obviously kind of paraphrase this in any way you need to, but there are two reasons we have forensics odontology: identify unknown human remains, but also on a minor scale, analyze bite marks on victims, suspects, or evidence. That part is not as used. It is mostly identifying human remains. So, as he discussed in the video, they had bite marks on some of the victims of Ted Bundy. And one of the big ways that he was identified is by those bite marks, because he had very unique teeth. And this is the picture of him getting his bite marks taken. So they will take they won't use the x-rays. They will actually take the bite mark stone, the casting of a teeth. If you've ever had braces, you know how they do that, because they give you one of those, right? Give you like your little statue of it. Yes.
When I got my braces, they didn't do that. I thought that they would, because they did that for my brother.
Yeah, they didn't stick your. That's super weird, because it's like really thick mashed potatoes. It's disgusting. It's so
I was
gross.
not prepared for that, and then they just.
Huh. Interesting.
So I was like, okay.
Maybe they have nicer like X-ray machines now, which is quite possible, where they don't need to get that specific model. Okay, so he talked about using teeth marks in Thailand to identify tsunami victims, and that is a lot of what they did. You remember that condo that crashed this summer down in Florida? It was this huge deal. It basically just collapsed with all the people inside of it, and it took them weeks to find all the victims. And so part of how they identified the victims was through their dental records, because they knew approximately who was missing. His family members would have reported it, and based on who was in the building. But they didn't know exactly which victim was which, and that's important to their family for closure. So identifying those victims was very important for the family and friends of those victims. So they used the dental records of those people to identify who was who. Okay. Identifying unknown remains, you don't need to write all this, but comparing x-rays of the remains to the ante-mortem dental records of a known person. It is done when only skeletal or partial remains are found, and can be done with a complete jaw or just a few teeth. So that might be a quiz question I give you. What is necessary for identifying remains? Whole jaw, only a few teeth. You don't have to write all this, only if you feel like you're going to forget something. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide in just a second. Okay, so identifying these remains, the need at the crime scene is very specific. So you would look at that on a case-to-case basis. What person at a crime scene would call an odontologist on scene if it's necessary? Yes, the manager of the team team leader. They're going to call who's ever necessary. They're going to come on, look at the scene, assess, and then determine, do we need an odontologist? All right, this is my list of people. Let's call this person. And they're going to have that list of people already prepared just ahead of time. And they're going to have a list in case the first person isn't able to do it or the second. And they're going to determine the people on that list based on their experience. So, they're probably going to start, depending on the case, they may start, if it's a high-profile case, with the most expensive one they have. Or if it's not a high-profile case and it shouldn't take too long, they may go with somebody with less experience. So they may be present during an autopsy. They are going to chart dental and skull features, take x-rays, write observations. Law enforcement will then use that information, put that information into a database, and then a program will compare these records. So they do have a program, not a specific person that's going to do that. So if we need to know anything, they may be present, and this is what they're going to do. They're going to chart, do skull features, take x-rays, write observations. They're not going to necessarily leave all of this up to the coroner or medical examiner if it is something specific to do with the teeth. So that woman, Gabby, I don't know how to say her last name, Petito, that went missing and then was found deceased, it was a very high-profile case. It was already all over the media and news. And so to identify her remains, they would have had somebody come in and specifically identify her, not just the medical examiner. Now, if somebody dies in their home of, natural causes, a drug overdose, and we know it's this person pretty, almost without a doubt, a coroner may look at the dental records just to further identify. Okay. Analyzing bite marks, they are going to locate and examine those bite marks. So this is specifically if we have a bite mark, so you're going to want to specify that here. They will still use the computer to compare it, but they are going to locate those bite marks. And you need to know that both a perpetrator and a victim may be the one leaving the bite marks, okay? So that might be a way that a person could identify their perpetrator. The victim could say, hey, I bit them, on the arm to get away. So the police would want to find this person quickly and take that evidence to show, hey, they were here. This did happen. We can corroborate the story. Corroborate. I was thinking into a loop. Okay, so this is important. I need you to listen. Bite mark evidence, not always useful. We don't often use it to analyze for on a person to identify the suspect. We might do it the other way around to identify, hey, this victim did bite this suspect, but we're not going to use it to identify a suspect on a victim because this bite mark evidence can easily be analyzed for the wrong reasons. So I hope we have time today, but we may not. Yeah, we're going to have to go over that tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the Innocence Project because there's a lot of people who have been wrongfully convicted because of bite mark evidence. Everyone will have 2 dentitions in their lives. What is dentition? What are those numbers? What? Exactly. So it's the pattern made by a set of teeth. You will have 2 very specific dentitions in your life because you have your primary teeth and then your secondary teeth. And then a very small percentage of the world actually have tertiary teeth where they have a second set of permanent teeth. And usually they don't really erupt, they don't come up, but sometimes they do, and so they have to do surgery for that. Very small population of people have that. All right. Your teeth characteristics would include, well, it starts 4 months in utero. So when a fetus is 4 months along, they start to get the teeth in their jawbone. And they start erupting around 6 months to 2 years. You would have all 20 teeth by the time you are 2 years old. Your permanent teeth start to grow as well, kind of in your jawbone, but they're not all there yet. They're still growing. So after birth, you start to grow those. And it takes 6 to 8 years to form and erupt, 2 more years for roots to completely form, so that as an adult you have 32 teeth. And then, of course, we have our wisdom teeth way in the back that we usually get removed, and I have yet to have mine removed because I'm a chicken. So something I have found really interesting as a parent, because when you're a kid, you don't really care. You go to the dentist, you get them cleaned, you move on with life, right? You try not to really deal with it too much, I feel like, as an individual. But with my kids, I'm a lot more concerned because I want them to have their teeth. And they've had a lot of teeth problems. My 2 boys, just no one taking care of their teeth in their formative years, so they've got a lot of teeth issues. And we look at their x-rays all the time, and when they're little, sometimes you don't see the teeth down in the jawbone in their x-rays because they're still kind of growing there. And then when it's time for them to push through, they'll show an x-ray. My oldest son had to have his top 5 teeth pulled out because they were so badly just cavities by the time he was 5. So they pulled out his top 5 teeth, and until he was 9 years old, he had no teeth. And he calloused his gums so bad that his teeth couldn't push their way through. So we physically had to get them to cut his gum and let his teeth down. And then, like, within a week, he had front teeth for the first time that I had ever known him. So it's very interesting, though, because they would do an x-ray and say, they're right there. And you could legitimately see them just like this. You could see where the gum was, and then you could see his tooth sitting right there. So even with small children, if they were to find the remains of a small child, they would still be able to see their teeth in their jawbone and compare that to a dental record. So it's very important to get your yearly x-rays. I mean, you don't think you're going to be murdered. Most people don't think they're going to be murdered, and then they get murdered, and then we don't know who they are. So get your dental x-rays so we know who you are. Smart, right? Yeah, just creepy. I know. No, but if you get murdered, just don't bite people, and then it won't matter. Yeah. All right, so there's nothing you really need to memorize about this. It's just facts I wanted you to know. Yes? Ooh, dentures. See, that's different because dentures are going to definitely have a different thing altogether. But you know what? They have serial numbers on dentures. Yeah.
That doesn't involve the fight.
No, it doesn't invite. No, but if you find a body and all that's left is a dent. Oh, you mean if they bite? Okay, so in that case, the dentures could be similar, if not the same as other dentures. So if they bite with a denture, you're just going to see, but they'll be able to tell it's dentures, and that's identifiable. That really narrows down your suspect pool. They're going to use denture cream that they would be able to, because that's how you keep it in. There would be denture cream on the residue. Like, there's different ways. They wouldn't necessarily get the bite mark.
What is denture cream? Is that like wood?
It is, but it's more suction cuppy because they don't want to like glue it in because they take their dentures out. Yeah, I can tell you're thrilled about that. Okay. Tooth characteristics. When the permanent teeth form root, the primary teeth starts to resorb and can no longer hold the root, and the teeth are divided between your maxilla and mandible. Like I told you, my kids have terrible teeth just from their formative years, and so the teeth basically that didn't get pulled in my oldest mouth all have silver caps, and he's losing all those back teeth now because he's 11. And now there are half rotten teeth and silver caps all over his dresser. It is disgusting. And the dentist said, "No, you don't get tooth fairy money for rotten teeth." So I've not been giving tooth fairy money for it. But seriously, they just fall out. You don't have to wiggle your teeth to get them to loosen. And I wish kids would know that. Eventually, they just fall out because they are breaking apart. So your mandible, I have a goat mandible somewhere in this room. I can't find it. But your mandible is broken up here, mandible and maxilla. Maxilla is the top portion. And your teeth are rooted down in the bone. But they can unroot. Okay? And if I find that mandible, I'll show you it. Teeth characteristics. You have crowns. Those are seen in the mouth. They're the outer covering of enamel. And then you have root anchors you have roots that anchor the tooth to the jaw. Cementum has fibers that join the ligaments in holding a tooth in the socket of the bone. So they can come out. It's a really weird like Lego piece kind of thing. So your jaw has your teeth. So if you have to get your teeth removed, it's going to hurt pretty bad because you are just pulling that straight up. Okay, again, we don't need to memorize these things. These are just some things to keep in mind because if a person is bitten by another person, these kind of things are going to have an effect. It's good if they have a wiggly tooth. We need to know that. Socket is called alveolus. You have pulp, which is nerve tissue in the center of the tooth, so on and so forth. What's really important about this right here is that the pulp of the tooth, this middle section, this is going to come back. We're going to learn more about this when we get to DNA. In this section is where you have DNA. It's where you could get information about where somebody grew up based on the isotopes, elements found in this portion. And how many people know what the mitochondria is?
The powerhouse of the cell.
The powerhouse of the cell. What does that mean? Oh, hallelujah. Who said that? Who said energy? Hayden? You are the star student today. So many times you guys say, powerhouse of the cell, and literally have no idea what that means. Like you guys know how to recite that, but couldn't tell me that what it means is it provides energy. Remember back to biology, Raylene. You had biology with me last year.
It's the powerhouse of the cell.
It provides energy.
Power.
Yes, it powers it. But you guys just say powerhouse and then have no idea what you mean. It provides energy. So something else that's really cool about the mitochondria, which you can find right here in these cells in the pulp, it doesn't have all your DNA. It has your mother's side of DNA. Yeah. So you and your biological siblings who have the same mother as you, even if they're only half siblings, you guys have all the same mitochondrial DNA. So that is a way that there's a whole forensic files that you can identify a body. So having that mitochondrial DNA is very important. There's actually more DNA in your mitochondria. Wait, am I saying that right? In your mitochondria usually than in your nucleus because your nucleus DNA it's kind of breaking down. So having that mitochondrial and nuclear DNA up in your pulp important for identification. Because if all else fails, if you have enough of that left, you could use it for a DNA match. Okay, something we need to think about. This is where I think is really important, so I need you to sit up and listen. This is important to me. We're going to discover, should odontology be used for identification technique? We use fingerprints. We use DNA. They used to use the it's not good for occasion, Bertillon system. But because of different things that we have seen in history, we don't really necessarily need to use odontology as the only means of identification. Teeth marks aren't as good as fingerprints because the teeth respond to wear and tear. You're going to grit your teeth throughout your life, especially if you're highly anxious, and that's going to change your bite mark. You're going to get chips and knock your tooth the wrong way. Your teeth are going to get crooked. My husband had braces in high school. Most people do, and he only had them because his mother wanted him to. And so when he got his braces off, he didn't wear his retainer. And then they took off his permanent retainer, and his teeth are all jacked up again. Like they went right back to where they were before. So your teeth are going to change. They're going to move. Just because you have braces doesn't mean your teeth stay straight. Teeth last a long time. Teeth are useful for determining age. You can determine how old somebody is based on the wear and tear of their tooth. Bite marks last on skin post-mortem. So those are kind of some pros and cons of using it. We're going to look at a couple of things. I have to pause the video. About the teeth marks. They do last a long time. Teeth last a long time. Most people have teeth. We were just talking about it's getting a little less with the meth problem, but most people have teeth. Teeth are useful for determining age, either through the pulp or through the dentition or the teeth that are there or not there. Bite marks last on skin after death, and you're going to learn about that a little bit today with Ted Bundy. Teeth marks are not as good as fingerprints. They are just not as useful. They are not as accurate. Think about the fact that your fingerprints have way more minute identifiable details. Most people have 32 teeth as an adult, okay? Your teeth are not going to be too much different than the person next to you. So consider that. Yes, when making identification for a victim, you want to be as accurate as possible. But, having teeth, you can get the DNA evidence from that. You can look at different marks on the bones. Did they break a bone? Did they have surgery? That kind of stuff. But when you use it to identify a suspect, I think that's just going to be a little more, room for error. All right, I believe. Okay, so this is the last one I have about this. You could read about it if you'd like. In both trials of this guy, the American Board of Forensic Odontology has revised its guidelines prohibiting the use of testimony like West's in criminal trials. So this is an example where he was 20 years on death row for a wrongful conviction. He was convicted twice for this murder, and eventually they were able to, say that this is not what we need to do. We need to look at other evidence. The other evidence exonerated him. So just a little review. Identify unknown human remains. Analyze the marks on a crime scene victim, suspects, and evidence. So like if they bit an apple, that would tell us something. Compare dental x-rays of unidentified human remains with their dental records. Locate and examine the bite marks. All right. I'm going to just take it back to that if you needed to read it.